We got to work with Trump when we can. We've got to get stuff. People are, the people are sick and tired of everybody just fighting with each other, not getting stuff done. Republicans are afraid of their crazy right base, and the Democrats are afraid of our base. Most of the cops are doing the right thing. We have to sell the message better. We went through this in New York after 9/11. You try to condition aid for California after the most devastating man-made / natural disaster in a long time. I'm going to fight back. Trump got away with distracting everybody on all these hot button issues, and the working class, many people voted for him, which doesn't make sense because the minimum wage in America is $7.25 an hour in 20 states. The guy doesn't have health insurance anymore, and somebody got sick of the family, and they're going broke because they can't pay their bills, and they're pissed off.
So I'm with Tom Suozzi, who is representative in New York. He famously beat George Santos, but I think even more importantly, you won a Republican district. Donald Trump won your district by a lot. And we Democrats need to learn how to win. And I think one of the best people to talk to you is someone who's actually kind of unlocked the code. Do you know what it is that got you to win a Republican majority district?
Yeah, let me just point out that Trump won my district by 19,000 votes. I won by 11,000 votes. Not everybody who votes for president votes for Congress. So for me to win, at least 20,000 people who voted for Trump voted for me. And wow, that was a massive swing from 2020 because Biden had won my seat in 2020. What's the secret sauce for my race? Well, number one is that the people know me because I was the mayor of my hometown, Glen Cove, small part of the district. But I was the county executive of Nassau County for 8 years as well. A big part of most of my district was in the county of Nassau. And I was in Congress for 6 years before I left to run for governor and got my ass kicked in the Democratic primary. And then I didn't run for Congress. George Santos won. He got kicked out. And I ended up taking that seat back.
Well, you had to win twice, right? Because there was a special election.
And then, I had to win again in November. Correct. Yes. So people know me, number one. Number two, they know that I reject extremism. They couldn't, say, "Oh, Suozzi's an extremist." They could, because I've always been saying I want to try and work together to solve problems and get things done. Because I'm fighting for the people. I'm not fighting for the party. I'm fighting for the people. I'm a Democrat. I'm a through and through Democrat. I've always been a Democrat. I'll always be a Democrat. Believe in democratic values. But I fight for the people. I don't fight for the party. And I'll work with anybody. I'll work with Democrats. I'll work with Republicans. I'll work with progressives. I'll work with conservatives. I'll work with anybody if you genuinely want to try and help people and make the world a better place to live in. I won't sacrifice my values, but I'll try and work with you to find a way forward to help people. And I was endorsed by the cops in my district.
Oh, interesting.
The Democrats had not, the Nassau County Police Department, the PBA, had not endorsed a Democrat for a long time. But when I was in Congress in 2018, when all the defund the police protests, George Floyd protests were going on, and I support, rooting out bad behavior in police departments, and we have to address drugs, alcohol, and mental health, and put resources towards that. But we still got to support the cops. Most of the cops are doing the right thing. And some days their work is very boring, and on other days they got to do a traffic stop and somebody pulls a gun on them. Some days they're chasing people, fleeing a crime with weapons. Some days they're delivering a baby or doing CPR, or other days, they're just walking a beat. But we got to support the cops. So I supported the cops. I gave awards to local police officers in my local Glen Cove Police Department, the Nassau County Police Department, in the New York City Queens Police Department, and the Suffolk County Police Department. And I said, these guys are heroes. And that was not easy to do at that time, but I didn't want to be painted with that defund the police brush. And most Democrats do not believe in that, but the Republicans effectively weaponized that issue against Democrats to say, oh, the Democrats stand for defunding the police.
I want to talk about that second point where you said working with everyone is important, because you wrote, actually, I'm pull this up. You have a New York Times op-ed that came out on the 1st. And the one part I want to talk about here was it says, but if Mr. Trump wants to have a more effective presidency than he had in his first term, he needs to embrace his inner deal maker and negotiate with the other party that holds just shy of half of the seats in Congress and key governorships around the country. And if he does that work, Democrats should meet him halfway. So I think that's an interesting idea, because I don't think I want to sort of talk about that, because why do you think Donald Trump should be given bipartisanship when he has done everything during Biden's presidency to try to derail him?
Well, I could go back to what your mother told you, which is two wrongs don't make a right. But we remember when Michelle Obama said, when they go low, we go high. And everybody, a lot of people were like, what are you talking about? Let's bury those guys. And the natural inclination, and what we see in our country as a whole right now in our politics, is a very adversarial relationship. We're going to show them, and they're going to show us, and we're going to get them, and we're going to get that. And we're not getting stuff done. We got all these problems, and we're not getting stuff done. And so do I get pissed off at stuff that Trump does, or pissed off at stuff that the Republicans do? Yeah. But I'm in politics to try and make the world a better place to live in. It's not worth doing this very unusual lifestyle unless you're actually accomplishing things. And I want to accomplish things. And I believe that most people in politics genuinely want to do the right thing. Most people.
Most Democrats or most Republicans?
Most people. I think most people who subject themselves to this life want to do the right thing. The problem is there's a lot of cowards in politics, and there's a lot of cowards in real life, that they're not willing to stand up against their base. The Republicans are afraid of their crazy right base, and the Democrats are afraid of our base. And so, why won't Republicans support background checks on guns when 90% of Americans support that? Because they're afraid if they support it, they're going to lose a primary. So, I always say that John F. Kennedy wrote a book after 175 years of American history called Profiles in Courage. Well, there were only 8 people in that book. So, I mean, we've got to get stuff. People are, the people are sick and tired of everybody just fighting with each other, not getting stuff done.
So I guess I understand your point, but I don't did Joe Biden, didn't he accomplish more than most presidents do in 8 years?
Absolutely. Yeah.
But he was
some
not
of it was
rewarded.
bipartisan. Some of the biggest stuff was bipartisan. The infrastructure,
but he wasn't rewarded in the polls. He wasn't rewarded. He was certainly, he's not president. He's not going to be president.
Well, he did a lot of good stuff, and he helped a lot of people. And
for sure,
and he made the country better. The problem, the challenge that President Biden, who I think did a very good job on a lot of very good issues, is he's not the greatest communicator in the world. And he wasn't able to sell the message. The president said so many times, I heard it so many times, we're going to build the economy from the bottom up and from the middle out. Well, what that means is the key to make America better, which is to rebuild the middle class. But most people don't understand that's what he was saying. That's what the infrastructure bill was about. It was about not only fixing infrastructure, but creating solid middle-class jobs where you make enough money so you can afford to buy a house and educate your kids and pay for health insurance and retire one day without being scared. That's what the Chips and Manufacturing Act was about. Not only national security and our posture vis-a-vis China and technology, but also creating jobs where you make enough money. Whether you're a left-wing progressive or a right-wing conservative, everybody in America should believe that if you're willing to go to work every day and work hard, you should make enough money so you can have a decent life. And we need to communicate that more clearly to the people, that we're the people, the Democrats are the people that stand for that. Trump got away with distracting everybody on all these hot button issues, and the working class, many people voted for him, which doesn't make sense, because the minimum wage in America is $7.25 an hour in 20 states, and the Republicans do not support increasing the minimum wage. It doesn't make sense because the Democrats support the PRO Act, which will encourage more unions in America to create more jobs where you can have a decent life, and the Republicans are opposed to that. The Democrats support doing these things to rebuild a middle class, do things like the child tax credit to lift people out of poverty, and the Republicans do not support those things. So we have to sell the message better that we're the ones fighting for the people. The Republicans, and especially Donald Trump, the master of all, are like pickpockets. What do pickpockets do? They work in teams. One guy comes up and bumps into you, and when you're jostled, you're like, oh, what happened? What was that? What was it? The other guy picks your pocket. So while we're getting all whipped up about the stuff that Trump is doing, now he's trying to do Panama and Greenland and the Gulf of Mexico to be the Gulf of America, and everybody's getting all whipped up. But meanwhile, he's not talking about his original promises, which he says, I'm going to reduce the egg prices. I'm going to reduce the gas prices. I'm going to reduce your grocery bills. I'm going to end the war in Ukraine in a day. I'm going to bring the hostages home before the sworn in. Okay, what about that stuff? But everybody's off of the new shiny object because he's a great distractor.
Well, to your point about, I think that's actually part of the fascist playbook is to, promise huge things, not deliver them, and then create a new enemy to focus on when you get into office. So I think the distraction, to me, I think it is a real one. It's not just like he's like, look over here and nothing's going to happen. It does feel to me like real in a way that it hasn't before. But I want to talk about your point about, the Democrats not selling the message. I think working people have a good sense of what the Democrats and Republicans, what their brand is. And I think that is part of the problem with the Democratic Party. If we're in this kind of moment of looking back and seeing how we could do things differently, as someone I was telling you before we got started, that I come from a working family. I do not have a college degree. I'm a white man. I should be voting for Republicans based on my demographics.
No, you shouldn't be, but I understand why you did that. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Based on my demographics, I'm more likely.
Yeah.
And I wonder if we could hypothesize together why it is that folks like me, who we Democrats actually want to improve the lives of working people, why working people are peeling away from the Democratic Party.
A lot of working people are pissed off because they're just not making enough money. I think it's as simple as that. I think there's a lot of people who can't pay their bills, who they saw their parents, going to work every day and bringing home a good salary, and they didn't think about it, but they had health insurance probably and a pension, and they had a decent life. And I'm much older than you. I'm 62 years old.
That's young for Congress.
Yeah,
for the record.
So in the 1980s, we were worried about the Japanese and the German car manufacturers were going to take over America, and they were beating us at everything. And there was a paper written by a famous economist named Milton Friedman, and he said, corporations are worried about their shareholders, but they're also worried about their employees, and they're worried about the communities that they're in. He said, you got to stop doing that. Just worry about the shareholders. If you want to be competitive in this global marketplace, just take care of the shareholders and everything else will work out. And everybody did it. Everybody said, we're not going to worry about the community. We're not going to worry about the employees. We're just going to worry about the shareholders. And we made a lot of money. Since the 1980s, the Dow Jones has gone up, 2,500%. And the GDP has gone up 2,000%. But workers' wages have gone up by like 30%. And so I don't know if you know the movie Wall Street with Michael Douglas. He was Gordon Gekko. He had the slick back hair.
I know of it. Yes, I don't think I've seen it.
He said, greed is good. That was a big line in the movie. Greed is good. And that's what happened in America. They said, how about the movie Pretty Woman? You know the movie Pretty Woman with Richard Gere?
I know of it, yes.
Oh my God, how old are you? I feel like an old man now. Anyway, in the movie Pretty Woman, Richard Gere is going to buy up this old man's company. It was a shipyard. And they're going to sell off all the pieces of the company. And the old man says, but hey, all these people are going to lose their job. He says, yeah, but we're going to make a lot of money. We abandoned a lot of these towns. We abandoned a lot of these unions. And we left behind empty towns with polluted properties. And now their churches are empty. And there's no more Elks Club. And the kids are doing fentanyl or methamphetamine. And the guy doesn't have health insurance anymore. And somebody got sick in the family and they're going broke because they can't pay their bills. And they're pissed off. And Biden actually did stuff to say, yes, we got to rebuild the middle class from the bottom up, from the middle out. But Trump appealed to these people that were pissed off and talked about the border, which is a real issue, but the border and the immigrants. He talked about transgender. Most of his commercials were about transgender, $200 million on transgender. And he tried to say, the Democrats don't care about you. I care about you. Now, I don't think he really does care about them. And I don't think he did enough for the middle class, but he's effectively distracted everybody and got everybody whipped up, and they voted for him. So you say, why would a guy like you, a lot of young men, they targeted a lot of young men, a lot of young white men and black men and Latino men, they targeted with direct advertising about why they should take their anger and manifest their anger by voting for him. And that's what I think is happening in our country. And we have to hear that anger, and we have to speak directly to people.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think part of any relationship, whether it be a personal one or one between a politician and their voters, is such a big part of it is listening. You know, I mean, I'm thinking like if I'm in a relationship and my partner were to say to me, Keith, I feel really mad. And I'd say, well, no, you don't. No, why would you feel mad? I've been great. You know, it's even if they're mad at something that doesn't necessarily make sense, it doesn't help the situation to ever say, no, you're actually not mad because everything we did was great. So
and I would say in this instance, it does make sense because people did lose their jobs where they had good wages and benefits and that they don't have anymore. So there's a reason that they're angry, and there's a legitimate reason that they're angry. We need to say, we know why you're angry, and this is our solution as to how to fix it. And I don't think we put those pieces together enough to say that to people. And plus, you can't do it overnight. You got to do it over a period of time.
Well, I even saw it happening with the LA fires where there were people on the left saying, you know, well, only 3% of LA is affected by these fires. Why is everyone so scared? It's like, but that is a very liberal way of looking at things. And I do think that part of the solution moving forward has to be not like, what are the facts, but what are the feelings and how can we listen to how people are feeling and then also explain the facts of how we can make them feel better.
That's you know, I'm guilty of this as well. They say Republicans talk in sound bites, Democrats talk in paragraphs, and that's a problem that we're not like just responding to people. And I'm guilty of that myself.
Well, I guess but I think it's really smart of you. I mean, obviously I'm going to say it's smart of you to be on my channel, but it's smart of you, I think, in general. I think you are doing the thing that I think a lot of Democrats did not do leading up to the 2024 election, which is actually engage with traditional media, but also engage with new media. And I think as we move ahead in the next 10 years, places like this are going to be much more important. And I appreciate you coming on here because, I think as a member of Congress, you inherently have clout, and it's kind of like a piggy bank, and you have a lot. You can choose where you spend it, right?
Yeah.
And so you are helping this channel and other organizations that you meet with just legitimize us, which helps not only me grow and helps other channels grow, but it also just, I think, helps folks know that this is like a real place you can come to get information. And it's so smart of you to be doing this, because
this is new for me because, I met with my team early in the, I guess, end of last year. We started talking about how the media is fractured. And we're going to hear more and more about this as people realize what the hell's going on here. But we've got, the traditional media, which I can't ignore. I mean, I've got my traditional daily newspaper and my weekly newspapers and my local TV stations and cable stations. And I've got my traditional media. But then you've got social media. And social media, I always used to think it was just about, if you don't say something extreme, like Trump says extreme stuff, or Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez says something extreme, that's how you get people to follow you. But no, it's really like organizing. It's like getting people who are interested in topics that you're interested in and letting them know that you're doing it and getting it out to them and organizing them like you would organize a campaign. So that's another piece. Then there's podcasts and getting this. I'm actually starting to love the podcast because it's so much better than going on TV, because you get to talk a little bit and explain things instead of like just worrying about, I didn't say it just right in my little soundbite. So, I mean, you still got to be careful that you say the right things, but I mean, I like this long form interview so much better. And now that more people are utilizing how many people watch your podcast?
Well, I have 250,000 subscribers, but there's about 4 million that watch every month.
Yeah. So that's unbelievable. That's more than, if you get 4 million people, that's more than somebody watches Fox News or watches MSNBC. So I'm going to be doing, but it takes a lot of time. It takes, you got to do your job. You got to do your campaign stuff. I got my family, of course. But, I've got my committees, and I'm going to be very involved with what's called the Problem Solvers Caucus. I'm on the Ways and Means Committee. I'm campaigning on on trying to change the state and local tax deduction and fix the border. And I mean, so I'm doing all this stuff, but then I got to do these interviews and try and spread the word. So, but I'm into it. I appreciate the opportunity to be on.
Thank you. And I have one more question, and it's about Speaker Mike Johnson. I saw that he wants to tie aid to the LA fires on like a conditional aid, which means, for the viewers who don't know,
that violates the national principle. That is, we went through this in New York after 9/11, and after even Hurricane Sandy, but especially after 9/11, where people were trying to hold up getting aid for the people that died, the people that worked the pile and stuff like that. I mean, you don't do that. He's from Louisiana. I mean, they've got hurricanes and floods there all the time. I mean, it's just wrong. When people are in trouble, we got to pull together and help them out. And we got to figure out how to fix the problems we have. I mean, the problem here happens to be climate change, which we got to get people to wake up to that reality. But that's just wrong. And I talked about in that article you mentioned that I wrote. We got to work with Trump when we can, but we got to fight back too when it's appropriate. I mean, when he tried to get rid of the Affordable Care Act, I was right there on the front lines fighting back. When he tried to deport the Dreamers, I was on the front lines fighting back. He tries to weaponize the DOJ to go after his political enemies. I'm going to be one on the front lines fighting back. He tries to undo all the stuff on climate change. I'm going to be there to fight back. You try to condition aid for California after the most devastating man-made / natural disaster in a long time, I'm going to fight back. So I want to work together, put my hand out. Let's work together. I'll fight when necessary, though. And that would be an example of where you'd have to fight back.
Well, I guess to me, I just personally feel like if that's how they are about this, they're not going to want to work at all. And so why give them any wins? That's how I feel personally. But I'm not a member of Congress. I'm not a member.
That's human nature. But that's what's killing our country right now, is everybody's just fighting instead of getting stuff done. So, and I understand that, I'm not saying, I know how you feel, like you just said.
Thank you for hearing me.
We're pissed off, you don't want to let them get away with that stuff. So, but we got to get stuff done. And we got to, our country's facing a tough time right now. We got to figure out how to work together to get stuff done, because we got to recognize that globalization and the way that we've hollowed out the middle class in our country, and the fact that we're not talking to each other, we're talking over each other, is killing us. And the people are sick of it. Most people are not liberal or conservative in the wings. Most people are in the middle, and they're becoming politically disenchanted and politically disengaged. And we got to get those people's trust back and get people to work together to make our country better again.
All right. Well, I'm glad you're in there and not me, because I would just be sticking my heels in. So thank you so much for coming on, Congressman. And I would love to have you again whenever you have any important updates. It's been a pleasure speaking to you.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it very much. Thanks very much.